Call the May 13th meeting of the Transportation Committee to order. Good afternoon and welcome everyone. The Transportation Committee reviews items of interest regarding all modes of transportation in the city of Oshkosh, including motor, transit, bike, and pedestrian. We are an advisory committee, and our favorable recommendation today will go before the Oshkosh Common Council as needed. The council can accept or reject any recommendation from this committee. If you don't agree with our decision, you can discuss the item with any council member. If the committee does not recommend an item, a council member may sponsor a new ordinance regarding this item. All ordinance items require 2 readings before the Common Council. First reading will take place on Tuesday, May 27th at 6 p.m. and you will be allowed to comment on the item at that time, though the council will take no action. On Tuesday, June 10th at 6 p.m., the item will be on a second reading, at which time the council will take action. You will again be allowed to speak. For this afternoon's meeting, I'll read each agenda item, at which time, if you'd like to speak, please step to the podium and give your name and address. I do ask that you keep your comments pertinent to the agenda item. The item will then come back to the committee for discussion and action. The committee has 2 alternate members who are allowed to participate in discussion and not make motions or be included in roll call votes on agenda items, with the exception of initial roll call and minutes approval. However, both are in today. All right, great.
Pressure's on. Yeah. It's very enthusiastic.
All right, I won't read the public comment section since we have no one here to speak. So with that, we'll do the roll call, please.
Armstrong?
Here.
Merritt?
Here.
Hartman?
Here.
Lynch?
Here.
Martin?
Here.
All right, we have the minutes from our April meeting. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes, please?
Also move.
Second.
Evelyn moves. Jeff seconds. Any discussion? Vote, please.
Armstrong?
Aye.
Merritt?
Aye.
Hartman?
Aye.
Lynch?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
All right, we have no old business. So our first item of business today is agenda item number 1. Request to add 4 additional permit stalls to 200 East lot.
Yeah, so this is a business request as you remember, maybe like a year ago, we started leasing parking stalls in the parking lot. So 4 stalls were leased in this lot. So that's reduced the number of available permit stalls for the business, some of their employees. So one of the businesses requested an additional 8 permit stalls in that lot. So I took a look at it. I put a map in your packet, but I thought 8 might be a lot to start with. So I'm recommending that we add 4, and then I can kind of monitor the use. So if we did stalls 20 to 24, then we would still have, sufficient parking in that lot, I would say. And then if it looks like we have room to do some more, we can look at that, but it's, currently I think that would be a good compromise. They do have permit stalls as well across Main Street. I mean, it's a little more inconvenient, but they have to cross the street. So I did recommend that they could park there as well, so I know some of them do that. But it's just one of those things that we're trying to balance the parking stalls.
Well, at this point, there aren't that many businesses that have customer traffic in that area. Is that
That's
true?
what I understand. Some of the 2 business owners I talked to, they said, yeah, that it's mostly employees that are parked in that lot. At night, it's a little bit different because the dance studio, I guess, has a lot of,
Right.
parents that are there, but that's generally after 6 p.m.
And I wonder if it's close enough to the new Truffle Pig restaurant, if this will become a parking destination for that.
Yeah, it could be. I know they have, they are doing some renovations to the parking lot, their parking lot.
In the back.
Behind the building
Right.
there. So they will have some of their own parking as well.
Right. Okay. So do we have a motion on this item?
which lots, or which spots did you say you were?
So 20 through 24. So we recommend we convert those from the 2-hour to permit.
Isn't
Should
24
be 20 to
already one?
23.
Yeah, you're right, those 4. Yep, 20 to 23.
Go.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Ready to vote? Call the roll.
Can we ask questions first?
Oh, yes,
Or-
yes, please.
Um,
It's time.
So, I know you said that, so on the other side of Main Street, there's a parking lot.
Yep.
And in proximity, it's relatively close. But if this trend continues, there's not gonna be like public parking, basically. There's just gonna be permanent parking. Is that kind of the goal, or?
No, it's a goal is to have kind of a mix of both.
Okay.
So that's why they wanted to convert as many as possible, and that's why I said, well, let's do like 4, and then we'll see how that works.
Because 4 more then they're the majority of spaces.
It's probably half and half. Although remember though, permit stalls are enforced from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. So after 6 p.m. or weekends, then they're all free game.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Ready to vote? Call the roll, please.
Armstrong,
Aye.
Merritt,
Aye.
Hartman,
Aye.
Lynch,
Aye.
Martin.
Aye.
Second agenda item, to restrict parking on 15th Street from South Main to 50 feet west.
This is a request from the sanitation division, and that's actually this picture I have up here. So this is perfect, because there's a car parked right there. So there's cars on both sides of the street here. And they are employees, I assume, from what I've heard of the sanitation operators, say they're employees of these businesses. So they're having an issue with getting the garbage trucks up and down 15th Street here to do their route, to get their pickups, and then to maneuver onto Main Street. There is, parking on the other side of further down the street, and then also there's parking on this side, so they were just asking if we can just restrict parking to one side so they got enough room to get through here, and then to turn onto Main Street. And then obviously there is employee lot, it's just over here, so what happens a lot of times is employees just park wherever closest
Closer.
entrance is, and
So it's to restrict parking on on what side, just
The south side.
the south side?
yep.
Okay.
The whole street?
From south, no. It's
50 feet.
South Main, no, it's on 5th, so here, just
15.
basically right here, 50 feet
Gotcha.
west.
Right.
To their driveway?
Yes, yep,
So that cars
That
will
car's-
not be.
That second car's
right,
okay.
yep. So past the driveway's fine. It's just
Past the driveway,
yeah,
right.
it's just this area from the driveway to the stop sign. So
Yeah.
they need that room to make a turn.
Sure.
Seems pretty reasonable.
Those
Yeah.
kind of things make sense for the stop sign too, in my opinion.
Yes.
Right, yep, that's true.
So,
Yeah, I looked at that. I mean, technically, by state statute, park is restricted from 15 feet from a crosswalk, and every intersection's a crosswalk technically, but 15 feet only got us to like here, so that's not enough room.
Right.
So that's why we had to request an ordinance change.
I'll move to approve that.
Second.
Any other questions, discussion? If not, call the roll, please.
Armstrong,
Aye.
Merritt,
Aye.
Hartman,
Aye.
Lynch,
Aye.
Martin.
Aye.
All right, agenda item number 3, a request to extend the no parking zone on the south side of 6th Avenue and South Main another 50 feet west.
This I made an error on. This is actually Oregon Street, not South Main. So the request is no park on the south side of 6th Avenue from Oregon, another 50 feet west, and I'll show you that one here.
Yeah.
This is in relation to the new hospital. So the issue is that this is one of the main drives for the new hospital. They're closing this other driveway, which they might have done it already, but this driveway is getting closed after they finish. So the issue is this is where their MRI trucks come in and out. They got an MRI trailer, and so they need to be able to make that left turn to get down to Oregon Street so they can take the truck route. And if a car, it's basically this 50 feet here. It's already restricted from here to the corner, but they need that extra room here so that they can make that left turn to get onto Oregon Street. And here, there aren't any parking restrictions going this way on that road, so there's still, I mean, really, it only affects this one house, and they have a driveway, and they're.
Is
like
it
I said,
their
they can
driveway
park
on the
here.
left, or is their which side of the house is their driveway?
I don't know if
To
that's
the
a shared
right.
driveway.
Good question.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a shared driveway or not.
Okay. Well, they both
It
look
looks
pretty
like,
deep, though.
yeah, it looks like they have plenty of room.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's just, A, they're probably not aware, but B, they're, probably just want to park close to the front, which, that's gonna be a problem though, if there's a car there and that semi's trying to turn.
Yeah.
But really, there's no option here. I mean,
No.
Yeah.
Is this a temporary thing while they're building?
No,
Or is
it's
it something you
permanent.
want to keep?
I'm
It's
going-
permanent. That's why we, and I think our, one of our field supervisors was trying to contact them, but apparently they didn't have any luck. But I'm like, well, we need to make it permanent anyway because it's going to be ongoing for as long as that hospital's there.
right.
Sure, because that's going to be access, so.
Right.
And there's parking on the other side of the street?
There's not.
But that yellow
But
house.
this yellow house that way there is.
Gotcha. So no parking on that side of the
Yeah,
street?
there's no parking here.
Gotcha.
But I think that too only goes this way. I think you could technically park up here.
Looks like the arrow.
Yeah. But as you can see, there's cars parked down here, so there's this yellow house, and then this way you can park.
Well, they're pretty much just residential there, right?
Yeah, they
There's
are.
no businesses that we're taking parking spots
No.
away from.
I'll move that we do that. Request the no parking zone.
Okay.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Armstrong,
Aye.
Merritt,
Aye.
Hartman,
Aye.
Lynch,
Aye.
Martin.
Aye.
Item number 4, request to remove more regulations near the demolished Merrill School.
Yeah, this is actually on New York Street, so I'll show you. So when my sign guys were out looking at the other stuff, and then they were sort of questioning this as well, they're like, well, so now we took care of Central Street, and then on New York, there are also, there's a bus loading zone on the north side, where actually, when we reconstructed New York, there's a cutout the street was made wider, and it's kind of made a cutout here so that buses could load and unload there, which obviously they're not going to need to do anymore, since they're all doing that on Kentucky now. So we can remove that bus loading zone. And then the same thing on the south side, there's a no parking zone from Kentucky to just west of Merrill. And again, it's related to the school because it's 7 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. on school days. And then from Merrill to 30 feet west of Central, again, there's another no parking on school days from 7 to 4, which back, when Merrill was here, that was a popular, obviously the buses were loading and unloading here, and it was a popular area for parents to park in or drop their kids off. Well, that's no longer an issue anymore because everything's on Kentucky on the north, west side is pretty much where everything's happening now. And it's wide enough where, it shouldn't be an issue if anybody did want to park there. Which hence why it only had a restriction till 4 p.m.
Was this requested by residents or?
No, this was just basically when, like I said, when my sign guys were out looking at the area on Central, they're like, well,
Why is that?
why don't we remove all this? Because this doesn't make sense anymore.
I'd make a motion to do that, to remove that old parking.
Can we
signs.
have a motion on all
All of that,
3 items, correct?
yes.
I'd rather do that than
Yes.
do each one.
Yes.
I'll second the motion if there's no second out there.
Okay. Any further discussion on these items? If not, call the roll.
Armstrong,
Aye.
Merritt,
Aye.
Hartman,
Aye.
Lynch,
Aye.
Martin.
Aye.
All right, staff statements.
All right, I got a few things. The two things on here, we do have one vacancy that will be after this month. Jim Staple, who's on the board, his moving his permanent address outside the city, so then he's no longer eligible unless the council changes something. So I don't know how that works, but if so, I know we have two alternates, so if you're interested in being a full member, then I would contact the mayor and tell him you're interested. And then he'd backfill that way, or I don't know how he does that, but anyway, there's a vacancy currently. So it's up to the mayor how he does that.
Jim, how do we find out when our term is up?
You can ask Jane, she
I
has
have
it.
this.
It's on the website too. It tells-
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it is.
shows you
Yeah.
the dates.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll go look.
Yep, and usually it's in, I know when we started, when we redid the committee as far as consolidating some, and I know we staggered the terms so that everybody wasn't up at the same
Right.
time. I know that was part of that when the appointments were made. But yeah, I think it's usually in May.
So if our term is up, do we need to reapply?
No, generally you just let the mayor know you're interested.
Okay,
So I can't remember who's up, but
But we contacted them.
But yeah, I can't remember which one you were up, but we contacted.
I was one.
Yeah.
I remember getting an email saying that I
So,
want to
so we let the
continue.
mayor know who was interested in getting reappointed, and I think that, I haven't heard anything different, so I assume that he's reappointing
Okay.
those people. I think he might be doing reappointments tonight, actually. I didn't bring the council agenda with me, but, so, there's that. And then additionally, then in May, sometimes we forget to do this, but we need to then elect a chairperson at the next meeting, because that'll be officially the next term when we get a new council member and everything. So, that's something to think about. Update on passport parking. So that's all been implemented. It was kind of a challenge for a couple of weeks just because everything was so new. We have helping people understand. So there are a couple things. So passport parking started as a way to sell permits electronically and better manage the on-street overnight parking. So that's what the city, our previous vendor wasn't working well, and the city had to make a decision relatively quickly for that to get somebody else because the current vendor wasn't going to extend. They weren't willing to work past their contract. So the city procured Passport to do that. So you can now purchase your permits for overnight street parking on the Passport website. It's a web portal. And then also enforcement's now done by license plate readers. So that is the overnight parking piece. But then as we were working through that, we decided to add the parking lots onto that. So now you can buy your lot permits online and you can manage them online. And there's no longer hang tags. That's also done electronically now as well. So it took us some people some time to get used to that, but I think now it seems to be going a little bit smoother. We had to explain that, you know, if you have a permit, you have to park in a permit stall. So you can't have a permit and park in a 2-hour stall, which seems to make sense, but I don't know, some people didn't understand that and they weren't reading the sign or something. So anyway, we've clarified that. So we have the web portal, but then also as we were doing that, we were getting a lot of requests for the downtown business owners for, well, what are we gonna do with daily permits? Because currently they could buy a daily permit downstairs and they could then put the paper copy on their dashboard. So we talked to Passport about that, and they have a mobile app that does that. So we procured the mobile app as well. So that's been a little bit of a transition as well. So now we talked about the fees last time. So council did approve the $3 for a daily permit. There's some fees that Passport adds on to that, but I think it total ends up being like $357 or something like that to park for the day. So now you can use your app when you're down in the parking lots. I've tested it a few times. It works great. You just download the Passport mobile app. Once you have that, Appleton uses Green Bay, so it works, you know, wherever you're going for different cities. It's nice to have the same vendor. Once you have your vehicle registered and the license plate in there. After the first time, then it's easy. You can just renew and all your information's in there already. So now that is an option for people to have a daily permit, you can park basically all day for like $3.50 or something like that. So, but there's a little confusion between the web part and the app. So the web part is for everything other than the daily permits, and the app is for the daily permits, which makes sense for like a visitor versus, I think once everybody purchases their initial permit, then it'll get to be more normal, just be kind of routine. And once you do it the first time, like I said, it's pretty simple. I've done it a couple times. It's just getting used to it. That takes a little time. And then we talked to previously, if people have questions, they can come downstairs to the counter and they'll help them down there figure out what they need to.
What is that called again?
It's passport parking.
Passport.
Yeah. So we put the signs in all the parking lots, that says, download the passport parking mobile app for daily parking. And then everybody that currently had a permit got an email with the instructions as well as the information to go to the website and to get their permits and manage them that way. And the other cool thing is that downtown business owners, if they want to pay for a customer's parking, they can go online and they can purchase validation codes, and then they can give those codes to their customers. So I know like the salons are always saying people need to stay more than 2 hours. Well, they can do that now. And I've even had some employees of businesses that not want to purchase the daily permits. I assume maybe they work part-time or something, and they only work a couple days a week. Well, so it doesn't make sense to maybe get a monthly permit or something like that. But lots of options, so it's kind of nice that we didn't have all those abilities and all those options. So it's a transition, but like I said, as people get used to it, I think it'll be better than what we had.
It's especially nice it works in some of the other cities around us too.
Yeah, that's, it's nice that they have the same vendor.
Yeah.
Like I know the university has a different vendor. They use a company called AMP, which I've used as well, but it's the same, it's similar, but it's nice when you only have to have one app.
So as a salon patron, you get a code, then if you have the app, you just put in that
Yep.
code, and then if it reads, it says you're good for.
Yep.
Because it knows your license plate number.
Okay.
Right, you'd still have to register yourself, but
Yeah.
the salon owner could say, all right, well, here's the code to pay for your parking. Just put this validation code in when you go on the app. So that's, like I said, there's been a few hiccups, but it's going fairly well. Since we were working, this is basically just I asked somebody to run this yesterday, but it's just a ridership report. The question I was wondering is, since we have eliminated those third shift paratransit hours, how has that affected ridership? Because it went in effect April 1st, so now we've got, a little over a month in. So basically overall, it really hasn't made much of a difference. I mean, year to date, we're up like 250 rides for paratransit.
Oh, these are all paratransit, right?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
So the first one is, that's for like a senior Dow ride or ADA rides for people that are ambulatory. The second one is for wheelchair.
Okay.
The third one's for our rural program we have at the county, and the ATJ is access to jobs. So what we thought might happen, and it did happen a little bit if you look at April 25 for access to jobs versus April 24, is we got about 146 more access to jobs rides. So we thought maybe some of the people that were using that service third shift might shift to access to jobs, and a couple people have. But other than that, it's pretty steady. We haven't really seen a major effect, so I think overall that was pretty successful. Got a couple of complaints, but I think one or two people we were able to help get on access to jobs. So I think overall it's been pretty good. So that's something we keep an eye on.
Well, I appreciate this.
Yeah.
As you know, it was a pretty emotional issue at
Yeah.
the beginning, but I think your solution was a good one. I think that having that third shift where you have 2 or 3 people using it, it's just not good use of our resources.
Yeah, and I think we'll, next month, we'll talk a little bit about the fixed route service hours on Saturday. we have a similar situation, but I think we have some alternatives that might work, but that's gonna be a process too, that we'll have to obviously start here, talk about it a little bit, and then we'll be talking about it throughout the budget cycle, see what makes sense.
Okay.
That's all I have.
All right, any items from committee members?
I guess, how is the new bus routes? You getting feedback about what the new bus routes? Steve hasn't been here for a while, so.
Yeah, no, yeah, I told him he didn't have to come because we haven't had a lot of, it's been mostly traffic stuff. But so far, Jane, maybe you have a little better idea. What do you think kind of feedback we've been
We
getting?
didn't have any complaints.
From bus drivers?
Adding the DMV was huge. A lot of people really like that.
Adding what?
The DMV,
Oh, okay.
yeah, because that's been requested.
I just know, they go down my street now. Route 3 does.
Okay.
And sometimes, I wish I could get my neighbor to coordinate parking, because if he parks on the street and I park on the street, it's pretty narrow.
Oh, yeah.
I sometimes worry about the buses
Oh,
trying
sure.
to get through, and I don't know. It's
Yeah.
gotta be a challenge sometimes.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
When people don't think about
Right.
zigzagging parking. I usually do. If he's parked there, I'll park in front of my neighbor,
Yeah.
so that there's same thing with garbage,
Right.
although the garbage always gets picked up, so I don't know. But-
Yeah, as far as the routes go, it's been fairly successful. I think that, like Jane said, the DMV, we're doing that by request only, but we are getting a few people a day that request
Yeah.
that pick up or drop off, so that's worked fairly well.
Good.
I know people were happy about that North Industrial Park being extended as well. I guess I don't have the data on that yet. But the drivers, I haven't heard any real complaints. I think
Oh, good.
I think it's been going fairly well. But it's fun, you
I
mentioned
get to
that,
wave at. If
yeah.
I'm out. I don't know too many anymore, though.
Yeah, we've had a lot of turnover the last couple of years.
Oh, yeah.
But then well, we talked a little bit about when we were talking about the parking issues, though. I mean, I get calls a few times a month anyway from people that are complaining about parking, and sometimes sometimes I actually do tell them, like, can't you just talk to your neighbor? I mean, it seems like something maybe it could work out.
Right.
Sometimes it works, sometimes I
Yeah.
ask if
He
an
at
officer
least
can stop by and,
He snow plows his curb, so he can hug the curb in the winter.
yeah.
He's meticulous.
Right.
Kind of
I had one person that said their neighbor wouldn't park their car in the driveway because it leaked oil and they didn't want oil to leak in their driveway. So, yeah.
And they're calling you.
Yeah, well, that's because they want to, because the other neighbors having problems, with whatever, garbage pickup or mail delivery or snow plowing, and it's like, so yeah, I get a lot
Did you
of-
recommend a mechanic?
So if it's something they can't work out and it doesn't make sense to change some of the ordinance, then once I'll call
Put no
OPD
parking sign in front of it.
and ask, hey, can an officer just stop by, see if they can help mitigate the situation or mediate it, it's like, which sometimes that helps. But then again, people don't want to, an officer showing up at their door either, so. So, yeah. Yeah, parking is always controversial, as you know.
I have just one question for you, and that's
Okay.
on the corner of Witzel and West Haven, where the Quick Trip is
Yeah.
on that that northwest corner.
Okay.
People going west on Witzel want to turn right onto West Haven and then make an immediate left turn into the Quick Trip.
Yeah.
And that is there's traffic backed up because, I've seen traffic backed up there because there's no place for them to turn. Can there be a sign saying, don't block the driveway?
For cars that are waiting for the light
Right,
going
to the
the opposite
Right,
direction.
waiting for the light to turn left.
I think they should eliminate that driveway.
Well, do you know what? It's interesting because I actually use it once in a while, but
I drive by there all the time.
it's set up
Close
so
to
they're
my
not
house.
supposed to go into that. If you
No.
look at it, there's kind of an island and it's kind of set up so that you're going north, not
Yes.
south. It's set up with that intention, but that doesn't prevent anybody from going in that way.
Yeah,
Technically, they're supposed to come in off of Witzel and go out
Correct.
that way.
Yeah,
Yes.
cross that,
Yeah.
cross West Haven and then
And
turn
then
right
turn
into
right.
Wixom. That's
Yes.
what I do.
Yes.
Yeah,
Because there's
that's-
too many cars coming the other way that you can't even.
so I don't know.
Yeah, I can look at that, it's something, so it'd be so West End Witzel, yeah, I know what you're
But the
talking
next driveway there on Quick Trip, that's exit only.
Correct.
No, isn't there a third one? There's one close to
Oh.
the building, and then there's one past the building, which is
Right.
exit only, I
Yeah.
thought.
But in any case, the
Yeah.
one that's closest to Witzel, sometimes we get traffic backed up onto Witzel, they're trying to turn onto West Haven. You'd think that people would pay attention to that, but alas, they do not.
Well, even if there's signs, they're not gonna pay attention to it.
They're
That
still
that
going.
happens here on Church Street all the
Does it?
time. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's that driveway, right as the church
Oh.
intersects with Jackson,
Yeah,
there's that
yep,
building,
right,
that
yep.
blue building.
It says don't block driveway.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm the only person in the city who like actually obeys that.
I've seen
Yeah,
that.
I know where that one is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that quick trip driveway is useless because it's too close to the stoplights. That particular driveway. I think there's one here, right in between the pumps and the building too. So,
I
Well,
don't think so. Okay.
never
I
mind.
think so.
Yeah. I mean, I have to take a look
And
at
then,
it,
of
but
course,
yeah.
the one you go on with.
All right. Any other items? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Call the roll.
Armstrong,
Aye.
Merritt,
Aye.
Hartman,
Aye.
Finch,
Aye.
Martin.
Aye.
We burned through that agenda, didn't we?